And we're live.
Welcome to the Andre The Beast Crayton Show. My beautiful co-host, Yolanda Smith, the branding expert. Yolanda, we're going live. We decided to do it live.
Yes, we are live.
So please subscribe.
Like, share. We're going to be on all day, y'all. We got some shows coming for you. This is called our Sunday Sit Down. We're going to be doing it.
That Sunday Sit Down, Lord.
You like that?
I like it.
The Sunday Sit Down.
You
so
know,
if y'all think about us, call us so you can bring us some lunch or some dinner or something, because we're going to be working all day.
Working 9 to 5.
What a way to make a living. Welcome to the Andre The Beast Crayton Show.
Today, Yolanda, we're going to start off with a really, really emotional topic. I know the viewers probably like, well, why would you start off with a show live on emotional? Because this is Suicide Prevention Month, and it's a topic that we need to address. And what better way to address it than on the man who basically, my voice is going to be heard, your voice is going to be heard.
Yes.
And we have Miss Shannon Cagle Dawson, award-winning.
Yep. Emmy-winning producer.
Keep going.
And suicide prevention advocate. Shannon, we are so delighted to have you today.
Shannon, welcome to the show.
Glad to be here.
You know what? Let's just get right down to the point. Your husband, the late Rick Dawson, one of Channel 8's
Long time
reporter and anchor. Mm-hmm. Yep. Great guy.
You know, when I reached out to you from Patty Spiller, we'll talk about Patty in a minute. Here on the show, we bring that beast frame of mind to the viewers. And I remember Patty saying, you have to have her on the show. She has to tell you this story and her road that she went down to speak heavily on this topic. We talked on the phone, and I didn't know your husband personally. We all watched him. Mm-hmm. But today you're here to bring a full awareness to what's going on. Share with the viewers a little bit about. Let's talk about you first before we talk about Rick.
I was going to say we need to know who we talking to.
Oh, okay. I'm Shannon Cagle. That's who I was professionally before I married Rick. I had a career all my own for 10 years before we ever got married. So
what was that
I was
career?
just Shannon Cagle. You know what? I wanted to go into broadcasting.
Okay.
I went to Butler University to get a broadcasting degree, and I got a broadcasting degree. And over 30 years later, I'm still using that broadcasting degree. I consider it a good
Education
investment.
pays. Okay, for all of you, wait a minute, let's just cut in, because it's a whole lot of young people today not wanting to go to school because you think it's too expensive. Here's an example of where that degree has paid off.
Do what you want to do, so you're going to keep being passionate about it, and it will serve you well.
Yes.
It will absolutely.
I agree.
The job market is all about competition, right? And you have got to outperform your competition.
There you go.
And if they're going to stack you up against somebody who has a degree, frequently the person with a degree is going to win.
Is going to win out. Okay,
Yeah.
see, she might be my co-host for branding. Wait a minute, we might have another little spin-off show, because
Hey,
she's
I know.
telling you,
Branding for success.
you need to have a competitive advantage. Okay,
Right.
we don't want to derail, but we are live,
No,
so we
true.
can talk about whatever we want to talk about today. But,
that's what I wanted to do. I have been in broadcasting since I was 14 years old, and that was my goal. I got my broadcasting. I lived in smaller markets. I worked in Scranton, Pennsylvania. I worked in Roanoke, Virginia. And then I got to come back to Indiana, which is where my family was. Mm-hmm. And I worked for, 15 years at Channel 8, freelanced probably another 13, 14 years at WFYI, doing the public media thing, which is a little bit of a different flavor.
Different.
And then, these days I work as, I do still do producing work, but I also work as a public relations and communications director for a charter school system in Indianapolis.
Nice.
So,
Back to education again. See how that ties in?
no,
Yeah.
it's important.
Yeah.
It really, really is important. And then, I met Rick at Wish TV. Rick graduated from high school in Kokomo, and he had gone to IU. And what a lot of people may not realize about him is he was a very fine artist. His drawing and painting skills were wonderful, and he had actually gone to IU to study art. But the art community, it's not like it is today where everything's digital and it's graphic and all that sort of thing. And he didn't really feel like he fit well into the fine arts community at IU. So instead, he shifted over and he got a degree in journalism from Ernie Pyle, the Ernie Pyle Journalism School at Indiana University. And he also got a degree in psychology because he was always interested in how people's minds worked, which, in retrospect is kind of interesting because he was interested in it. That really informed his reporting. He really wanted to know where people were coming from.
It probably made him a better reporter, too.
I'm sure.
I think he really did feel that way. He definitely felt that way. But it did not help him in terms of introspection when he himself became ill.
Yeah.
So that was a struggle. So this month, actually next week, will be 8 years since he took his own life at our farm in Rush County. Now, this was not a sudden, unexpected event in the way that we often think everybody's fine. For our family, we knew he was struggling. Rick had lost his job at Channel 8 3 years prior to that. And I think that even he was as surprised as the rest of us were how much of his self was wrapped up in his work.
And tied to that.
When did you really start noticing some changes happening with Rick? He had been at the station for a while. You guys have a happy life. You have
Was he
kids at the
struggling
time.
there
Was he
at the
struggling
station,
at the
or
station
was
as
it
well?
I do think that that there were some struggles that were happening primarily because there was some family pressure that had been brought to bear. We had a relative that we ultimately. This person came into our care, and that was unexpected. We were not, and it was his relative, not mine, but we're a family and we do these things together.
Right.
The stress was excessive. It was very hard. It was difficult emotionally. It was difficult in a lot of different areas until somebody in your family is relying on you for that sort of dependence. And we've spoken about how until you've been there, you don't really know.
That's right. Till you walked in my shoes,
hard.
don't judge me.
And then he lost his job.
Okay.
And then, after that, it just became sort of this series of things that...
One event, one catastrophe after the next.
Right.
After the next,
But, you would think that individually any of these things you might be okay with. But that's what we don't see in other people. We're not in their lives or in their heads.
Right.
And we don't know where their anxieties are coming from.
What year was this, so the viewers can understand? Because they probably think recent, but this happened when people really didn't understand what...
Well, 8 years ago, right?
He
10 years ago.
He died 8 years ago, but it was 13 years since he lost his job.
Yeah.
So 2010.
So still having that mystique around it.
Right.
Still
so
having
people
that
really didn't know about it that much. It was still kind of closed door.
It's been a work in progress, I think, across the United States to kind of open people's eyes to what mental health issues and what mental health awareness looks like for people. And I will continue to say that, there are people like me who are out there walking this walk all the time, but systematic change comes from, in a lot of ways, younger people. And that's one of the things that our children do is they work proactively and demonstrate to their peers that it's okay to manage your mental health, and you don't have to be secretive about it.
Yeah.
You don't have to hide it from people.
Yes.
And talking about things is probably better for you than hiding the things that you're worried about people wondering about.
Well, we did talk about that real quick. We did talk about that. The fact that now, you're right, we do need to talk about it. We do need to have the ability to come out, and more, not so much come out, but to really be comfortable. You got to have that safe haven. But back to what we talked about earlier when we was off camera, Was Rick able to confide in anyone at his job? And if yes or no, explain why or what that was like. Because basically, you was his confidant, and people need to understand this is something that's even new to you because it's not happening now where it's a broader scope.
I think COVID helped to bring it out. You know,
that really triggered everything.
And then you've had athletes come up and feel comfortable talking about the anxieties and pressures that they feel, the depression and things like that.
That's really important.
Did you notice that?
Yeah.
This really, a lot of people have felt more comfortable to elevate that conversation, and that's critical if we're going to do something about it. But going back to where you were, that probably would have been a little scary because you didn't know how people would judge you, and if in fact you would be penalized.
That's exactly right.
Was he penalized in the workplace for coming forward, or at least trying to come forward?
You know, I wouldn't even tell you that he tried. I think that he thought that he was going to be harshly judged, and so you know there were so many people at the service after he died who just were shocked because his public persona, and trust me, he was a cheerful man. He had a great sense of humor. He, enjoyed his friends as much as we were with them, but we lived on a farm, and that isolation provided him a wall that he could put between himself and other people that he didn't want to see how he was struggling.
What was your emotions like when he did come home with the kids and being the sole support of someone he felt comfortable with? How much of a barrier was that for you? Because did you really know which way to turn? Which resources? Seriously.
No, but you're not letting her ask. You asking 4 and 5 questions.
But it's a whole experience, right?
Yeah,
exactly the way you're describing it. It is a whole experience. So it's, who is bringing in the income? Who's keeping the lights on? Who is keeping the household fed? Who is...
So from the time his contract was terminated, he never went back to work after that?
He had a brief job at another media outlet, and then he wound up departing from that as well for personal reasons. I mean, so it's not as if everything was in stasis when he lost his job. I mean, other things happened. Other family situations arose. Other things were happening as we're trying to, raise children at the same time. 3 years seems like a short time, but it's also a long time. A lot of things can happen in 3 years.
Oh,
and some
absolutely.
of them are good and some of them are not so
I'm
great.
Here. Yes, I know that. I know that firsthand.
So the answer to your question is it was hard. It was really hard, and I wouldn't wish it on anybody. The trying to keep him afloat emotionally, trying to make sure that my children had some sense of normalcy in their lives, even though things were falling apart around them. And if you think children don't notice these things, you're just wrong.
And like, what ages were the kids around this time frame?
So when Rick died, our youngest was 12, and our son was 15, and Rick's oldest was 21.
Gotcha. But 2 of them still relatively young. Yes,
right.
Definitely.
And it really breaks my heart in some circumstances because our youngest daughter, will occasionally say, I just really don't remember my interactions with Dad very well. And that is not her fault. Children just don't remember well. You don't. We've had also the discussion about how our brains don't mature until we're about in our mid-20s, 25 or 26.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's the same with kids. They do not remember things. They don't even really start remembering situations or imagery well until they're about 8 years old. And so I have to remind her, your brain, it's not your fault. Your brain wasn't in the business of remembering.
Yeah.
It's okay. I'm here to remember for you.
Now, you said it has affected one of your children.
Yeah, my son has, and I will be happy to talk about this too. Our son struggles with diagnosed anxiety and depression. But again, my goal, and even in a lot of what I do in terms of supporting young people today, is making sure that they know that they need to be proactive about their own mental health.
Explain that to the viewers, like proactive.
Well, you need to be able to feel like there's some place you can go, somebody you can talk to, somebody who's going to listen to you, because we all have memories of what it was like to be teenagers, and some people had great teenage years and other people did not.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You couldn't pay me to go back and be a teenager again. A lot of rough things in your life happen when you're a teenager in terms of, like who accepts you, who are you trying to impress? Whose attention or affection are you trying to find? And it can be hard if you find yourself in a rough spot. Where is that soft space you want to fall? My kids know I'm their number one soft space. Right. Number one. They do not have to be afraid to come to me about anything. Not every kid has that option.
That's true.
When your son, before he got diagnosed, we talked about this. I believe in, and don't get me wrong, I'm not knocking any therapy. I just think there should be, like you said, plans in place. Because if somebody comes to you with that, with depression, usually in today's society is, even with certain therapists, is to medicate first. We talked about this. Did your son come to you first with the problem?
So he was struggling even before our...
We got a gnat around here.
Don't eat it.
He'll be gone in a minute.
Yeah. Don't know. Yep, there it is. It's coming for me.
Because you're also sweet.
Yeah, it's because we're sweet. So, he, before my husband died, he and our son had what could be described as an adversarial relationship. They argued they're kind of the same person, and they would argue a lot. And then when we lost my husband, I was really fortunate that one of the folks I was freelancing with had a system where they could offer us an initial free mental health care assessment. And I jumped on that right away. Yeah. Not everybody has that option. Or let me put it this way. Not everybody had that option then. I would like to think that options are a lot better now than they had been before.
I sure hope so.
Even in Indiana, in terms of state agencies, especially during the pandemic, they really, really worked to make free mental health care available to Hoosiers. Yeah. 8 years ago, we did not have that. We did not have that.
Well, but a lot of that system was broken and the infrastructure was sort of torn apart and taken away, which sort of contributes to why we have a lot of homelessness today, too. A lot of that goes back to the mental issues.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Yeah.
And so, but at that point, that's where I really doubled down to make sure that my kids knew that we weren't going to let this go by the wayside. That's right. We were going to tackle whatever those emotional or social or mental issues were, because for my kids, this is the basis of their future life. Right. I want them to be prepared. I want them to, to have a good foundation.
I'm feeling the mama bear instinct coming out. I guess my question to you, let's talk about this, because you have become a suicide prevention advocate. We know that. Talk about some of the work you do in that space and how you feel like you're being able to truly make a difference for those who really need a voice, because that's what you are. You're the voice for a lot of people.
Well, one of the first things I do is I almost never say no if somebody asks me to come talk about my experience, because until we are all comfortable talking about the experience, people are going to feel like they can't. Now, there's a difference between can't and won't. You can't force somebody to talk about their experience. In that instance, they just won't, right?
Right.
The part, like where my husband was, where he felt like he couldn't, where that is different. Nobody should feel as if they
even more dangerous than anything.
Nobody should feel as if they can't talk about it, right?
Yes.
Everybody needs at least one next step forward to how do I get out of this? Where do I turn? And if I'm that person, I am more than happy to be that person.
One next step. I like that, though.
Yeah.
What are some of the What are some of the avenues that people can go to for help outside of finding a good therapist and so forth? What are some of the major agencies?
If you're in kind of that anxiety crisis, what is happening in my head situation, if you're not to the 911 I'm in danger phase, the next thing that I know a lot of kids like to do is the crisis text line, which is 741-741.
741-741.
And if you text to 741-741, even if you just say hello, if you just do anything, someone will answer you immediately.
Hey,
and that's an easy next step because it's painless.
I think
right?
this is important. You guys, if you're on live with us, please share this so that other people can see this, because we know that the numbers have increased significantly as it relates to suicide.
And they're still going up.
Yes, they're still going up. And, it's affecting, this is one of those that has no income attached to it,
no age.
Has no age attached to it, no race attached to it. So it's really important. If you're on live with us, please do share.
No socioeconomic
No, doesn't matter how
background.
much money you make, where neighborhood you live in or not. You can always get some help. I like that. There's a text line, 741-741. That's easy enough to remember. Okay.
Sure.
I didn't mean to cut you off, but this is important enough that if we can share, comment, get this out there. We're live.
So a couple things. So I'm always, when people ask me, I never don't ask. We talked a little bit about my tattoo earlier.
Explain that
Yes.
real quick.
So
What
this is
that?
the suicide awareness tattoo is the semicolon, and a semicolon is different than a period, because a period means the end, but a
Yes.
semicolon is like there's a pause in my story. Right?
Ooh.
There's a pause in the story, but it's not the end. And so oftentimes you'll see people with little semicolons on their hand or on their neck or on their wrist or something like that. And that is their recognition of suicide awareness. I wanted a big one. So I had my own designed, and when people ask me about it,
Yes, look at that.
so there's the there's the period and there's the comma. It's in a Celtic design because I'm Irish. And so I had that done. Some people know what it is right away. They're like, I know exactly what that is. They recognize the semicolon design.
Yes.
Other people are like, wow, that's very dramatic. What's that about? And it gives me a chance to say, this is my passion, talking about suicide awareness. We can talk about it. You want to talk about it? I'm ready. Let's talk.
Let's talk. Because everybody has a story.
They do.
Who
Yes.
are some of the local celebrities? We already know Patty. Tell me about your relationship with Patty and just how much of a, this is what I like about Patty.
She's everybody's everything.
I was going to say
she's
Patty
always
is.
got that let me see what I can do to help. Tell me
Yes.
the relationship with not only Patty but some of the other people that have heard your story and said, you know what, I'm gonna help you push this fight of suicide awareness to the world.
Sure. So Patty and I, Rick and I worked with Patty at Channel 8. She had been at Wish TV forever and ever and ever, and I produced shows with her. And
Such
once
as
she was
Great Day. And
Well, we produced things together at Channel 8 when she was like the new news anchor with Ray Rice and Eric Halverson. And so, and we were all a big
those are names
happy
of blasts
family
from the past.
Right.
Which one?
Yeah, we
Eric Halverson?
yeah, Mr. Kroger. We were a family. We were a very big family back then, and Patty has one of the biggest hearts of all, and so she has never forgotten. She has been able to express her own struggles with depression as well, and how her dogs saved her.
Right.
The answers are not the same for everybody, but she found her answer.
Yep.
And she's out there living her best life right now,
Yep.
and I'm happy to be a part of that with Great Day TV. But there are other people. There are plenty of people in our broadcast families, and whenever I post or anything, people are willing to share out. If I go and sometimes I speak for some of the different agencies. I'm not affiliated with one in particular because I want to tell the story everywhere. I don't want to be limited to one agency and then not another. I travel around the state, and sometimes I speak at the Out of the Darkness walks, which are really great. And I'm very moved by Out of the Darkness walks because
Explain to the viewers what that is.
So an Out of the Darkness walk is usually a local suicide prevention awareness walk. And it's called Out of the Darkness because what we're trying to do is bring the issue of mental health and depression out of the darkness, but we're also trying to bring people we love out of that internal darkness. My husband didn't make it out of that darkness, but by God, anybody else I can help get out of there, I'm going to do it. And so, I speak and I answer questions and people are...
I'm over here smiling. Your passion is infectious.
I'm
it
going
is.
to speak a little bit from experience, and I want to make this clear in a soft way, but most suicide individuals leave a note. My family member did that, left a note, because maybe he couldn't explain what happened. And when the note was read to me, it was very detailed. And I think at the age of maybe 9 or 10, I was like, wow, as I got older, I was able to comprehend. I was like, man, this individual really has some serious depression. On your side, was there a note or something left behind, or you just...
No, there was. There
Okay.
was. But I always like to remind people that even though it may have appeared sudden to other people outside of our family,
Right.
inside our family, we knew that Rick was struggling and, literally devolving in his personal sense of being and happiness for easily those 3 years, maybe even more before he felt comfortable talking to me about it. But people have a tendency to think of suicide as being something either very sudden or something that someone who has been in that crushing depression. Frequently, it's kind of in the middle. Yeah. I mean, like I said before, it's everybody's individual journey.
But it seems like to me, one of the things I heard one time somebody described to me is that when you get to that point, and of course you don't know, because if they've done it, then they're gone on, right? So you don't really understand fully no more than what they may leave behind or what you knew about them.
Right.
But someone said, when it gets to that point, they feel like they've exhausted what they can do. They're tired. They can't take
Somebody
it.
told me, my therapist told me there are stages that they go through. Stage 1, stage 2, then pretty much a checkout. But this goes back to what we talked about. I don't understand if I'm going to you as you, my therapist. That's the safety net that I have. The next one is family, but you're the therapist, and I'm spilling my guts to you. I'm telling you what I'm going through because this is a safe haven. But then I go in and go to phase 2, the action. You go back to the therapist who works with the crisis centers, and they come up with a so-called plan. But help me understand. Let me go a different route with this, because you know where I'm going. That was supposed to be the safety net. So how can you, if I'm telling you what my problems are that's leading me down this road to depression, and you have it in front of you, why would you want, because most people don't want to be on medication. Then what do we do in that situation?
Well, I think that might be a little broad, and let me be very clear here that I am not a mental health professional.
I was going to say, me too, and full disclaimer, this is not my wheelhouse.
That my experience is personal and anecdotal, right? So, mental health professionals have signed on to a methodology, an ethical methodology of how this is going to work.
Right.
The person who is there for that care always has a choice of how they're going to accept that care.
Right.
And some do and some don't. And some people do very well on medication. They're like the voices in my head are clear now.
Yeah.
I am not in this, this horrible darkness where I can't even understand what my own thoughts are. I've reached this clarity, and if medication is the thing that helped me get there, then I'm going to work with my medical professional and keep on working. So some people, it works great. Other people have to find other ways to ease whatever that crisis in their head is. Because I used to say that about my husband all the time. It was like,
were there any type of
I've been very clear about this.
him?
We did not have insurance at the time.
Okay.
And the free options that we have these days were not readily available then. And even though I told him that I wanted him to investigate that kind of care, he used money as his reason for not doing it all the time. And I will always say,
you had a lot on your plate then.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Wow.
But I said to him, I said, we'll find a way to pay for it, but you have to want to do it. You can't make these decisions for people. They have to come from them inside, right?
That is
they
true.
They have to be willing.
But
we
if
can
they know,
support them.
if they know the resources that are there and available, I mean, and that's a good piece, because you'd be surprised at the people that just don't know who they can even turn to and what kind of support they can get. I'm just curious, if you really let it, as we think about it, I know we're kind of getting into the place where we got to wrap up, but when you really kind of think about it, if you were to give 2 to 3 things to the audience today, what 2 to 3 things would you really want them to know that you feel like could be impactful?
That people you love need to know you're a soft spot for them to land, and that you will listen. You should, have some place that doesn't involve another person emotionally that they can turn, like the 741 number, something like that. And I don't know, I guess one of the things I always tell people because you can oftentimes see the weight of the stress and the anxiety coming on people, even when they're trying not to. I often remind people that getting some rest will make a huge difference. It just giving yourself permission to step back from everything that is weighing on you, whether that's sleep rest, which is really good for your brain, which is where all this is going on.
Yeah.
Do that. Here's something I always like to tell folks, and we're not even going to step into the crisis of what social media does to our kids' heads these days and how it messes with people and how we're all living pretend on Facebook and everything like that.
Yes.
That's one of those things that sometimes we need to step away from.
Yep.
I think we need to get to a place. By the way, shout out to the Colts for doing their End the Stigma campaign on mental illness. That's huge. When you were talking about celebrities and athletes and people who are willing to say, I struggle with mental health issues, I struggle with depression and anxiety, don't be afraid to talk about this. This is real conversation. If somebody says to me, if I say, hey, how are you doing? And you say, I'm fine. It's our default. Then the next thing I say is, no, are you really? Are you fine? What's going on? Something. If somebody answers your how are you doing question and says things are not so great, you don't have to have the answer or the solution to them. You just need to show them that you're willing to listen, even if it's only for 90 seconds, to the thing. You don't have to share your own personal story back, or you could if you felt like it was helpful. The other thing is, listening to somebody else tell you about what's bothering them does not make you responsible for them. I think a lot of times
a good point.
People are afraid to hear the answer because they think that suddenly it's on them to help that person solve their problem. It is not. It is not. That mindset makes people afraid to tell you what's wrong.
That's a good point. That's a very good point. And as I think about some of our youth today, I think that we've kind of labeled them a little bit as soft. The generation, the younger generation, as soft
because they can't tackle problems.
Well, and I think that they're different emotionally tied type of generation where some of the things that in my era we grew up, you just toughed it out, you just buckled down and you went through.
Me and you get out of school and we played for hours until your parents said come in the house. We had
interaction is different now.
The interaction now is kind of like
text or I'm gonna watch videos.
you'll have somebody go, they sent me an emoji, and down one emoji can mean 50 different things.
And it blows your mind because you interpret it however you want to interpret it. Yeah, so I think that's one of those things where, really understanding that younger generation, I kind of struggle as even a parent saying, okay, are you really struggling not to be able to solve this problem, or have you even tried to solve it? It's just, where's the balance?
What's holding you up?
Yeah.
What's holding you up from solving this problem or taking the next step? What is it?
Good. I think I'll do something different.
We come from a different generation, and it's kind of like what I did with my daughter. I have to educate. It's so funny we just said this because now that it's clicking on me. My dad, a couple years ago, said he went to go apply for a job. He just wanted to work. So he works for the coast. He just sits in the parking lot and watches the cars. So before he did that, he went, I think, to one of the grocery stores, and they said, my dad comes back and goes, well, they made me get on the computer. And I was like, okay, well, he's used to the way we did it with the things.
Handwriting.
So things have changed. So he wasn't willing to adapt. And I think as parents in the new generation, as bad as this may seem, we have to learn how to adapt to their world, to teach them maybe how to combine both our ways and their new way of
doing
learning.
Things.
Because the first thing they'll tell us, oh, you just don't understand because you're not computer savvy, or you don't know what. Well, I don't. But if you teach me.
Yeah, so there's got to be some way where we just want them to have tools for survival. We want them to be successful. We want them to be okay.
Right.
That's interesting.
Before we wrap up, I'm going to ask two questions, and then I'm pretty sure Yolanda has a question to ask as well before we wrap up.
You know what I got to ask?
He must tell you.
Jason, now
I'm
he's reading my mind, Jason.
And Jason has a question
Very
too.
assumptive. I don't have any questions.
I don't have any
I'm
more
just
either.
I'm just an empty blank slate.
This is Andre The Beast Show live. Please like, subscribe,
share,
and
comment.
stay with us because we're going to be here all day.
Yes.
You want to stop
We'll
by?
be back
we're live.
at 2.
Yeah.
We'll be
Now,
back at 2.
Miss Shannon Cagle Dawson is in house, and like I said before we wrap up, I ask a couple more questions. Yolanda hit a point. We went through COVID, and the depression skyrocketed, and I think it skyrocketed for us a whole bunch of reasons. First was confinement. People aren't used to confinement. That was the first thing.
Isolation.
Which
and
are
more
two
importantly,
different things, actually.
Well,
you could be confined with a bunch of people that you're not used to being around all the time.
We can go there, and that's what I'm talking about. Now, but this is the tripped out part about that confinement. You're right. Domestic violence went up.
Yeah.
Because, okay, you can be my partner, but do I really want to stay home with you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week?
Or were you used to it? I think a lot of people got to know their mates in a whole different capacity.
The ones who now have to stay home where the moms are watching the kids, now the father's staying home where he used to Larry, Curly, and Mo all running around him all the time. So now you got a thing of depression that is utmost high. So my question to you is, what do you think Indiana has done with their job to address it? So right now,
I think that the state stepped up with their better health. Their better mental. I mean, they came out pretty proactively with access, free access. That you could start with. The accessing things online is kind of a soft touch for people who really aren't ready to admit that they are struggling with something. That doesn't require you to speak to somebody, which is a problem that a lot of folks with depression and anxiety have, is actually dialing the phone. Sometimes just Googling something is easier than anything else. And if that's your first step, then that's great.
How can the viewers reach you for public speaking, or even if they have questions, about...
Are you going to flood her with...
That's okay. That's
the
okay.
First person
and
I reached
Andre
out,
The Beast Crayton is her assistant.
Well, first, Andre knows how to find me now. So that's opened up a whole new world. So that's, you have magically become a resource.
Thank you.
So, but I am I can be direct messaged on Facebook. or Instagram. It's Shannon Cagle Dawson. That's me. You can also
Shannon Cagle Dawson. That's
my
Cagle.
Can we pull it up, Jason, her Facebook page so the viewers can make sure they have the right one? Because I'm pretty sure there's.
It looks like me.
It looks like you.
Kind of like that. Kind of like that.
So from a branding perspective, she's very consistent. What
Yes.
you see here is what you will see there.
There I am. Yeah. Twinkle. I will twinkle at you.
There she is.
Yep.
Absolutely.
That's my page. That's my puppy.
What would you like for the viewers to do to help you or aid you in your continuous journey? Because this is a never-ending journey for you, and my hat's off to you. I'm glad you're bringing it to the table. I'm glad you're fighting for the remembrance of your husband and really what he went through during a time that I wish the resources were available at that time, but it's not. But you're keeping it in that beast frame of mind to let people know now that the resources out, and they really need to take accountability. What can the viewers do to help you in this?
I think in the big picture of things, to say to be kind is kind of trite, but the reality is you're not living in anybody else's head. You don't know where they are at any given moment. If you have a choice on how to interact with somebody else, try being kind in the first place and try listening in the second place. Because, it's like everybody from Jim Irsay down to Shannon Cagle Dawson says, if you are not going to be willing to have these conversations and make people feel comfortable having them, then people are going to be struggling behind the scenes all the time when they may not even need to. When I think about the people that we lose, when I think about the reporting that my husband could have been doing in these 8 years, or 13 years, even since he lost his job, it just boggles my mind. He was invested. He thought, even before he died, that we were going to have a pandemic sometime in our lifetime. And when I think about the reporting that he could have been doing on everything that has happened over the last 2 years, he would have rocked that. Totally would have rocked that. I mean, he would have brought, true, solid information into an arena where people didn't know what to believe. Right? I miss that because he was a professional. It goes without saying that I miss my husband and my children's father and all the things that we had planned to do with our lives. But, if anybody else can be helped, if any of our friends can remember him well in the same way that we remember him and for the same reasons to help other people.
You know what I like to see people do in honor of Rick, and this is for the viewers. If you know somebody that either has committed suicide or whatever, acknowledge them. Let the world know this is a bigger issue. And I think the more that people are willing to come out, even on the social media platform, and share their stories and stuff, probably we can get even a bigger scope that this is a serious problem that needs to be addressed. And my treatment plan is pretty much like yours. Have 3 phone numbers in your phone. Call 3 people. And individuals need to call people. And just, what makes my day is when somebody just picks up the phone and calls. My buddy Tommy Robinson, shouts out to my buddy Tommy. Ever since I had surgery, he lives in Ohio, he always texts me once a week. I don't have to ask. It makes me feel good. You know what, though?
That's good for men.
Yeah, it makes me feel good.
Exactly.
Men are not good communicators.
Yeah.
I mean, they make fun of how many words women are using all the time.
Yeah.
We're just talking.
And
guys are not great at that.
And
it's
by the time
wonderful.
they get home,
He
the
doesn't
words
say
are gone.
anything. He just says, "Hey, Andre, how you doing? I'm just checking on you." And I can be either happy or sad, but just that little piece has made my day. So to the viewers,
Be
take
that
time
guy.
out and be kind.
Be that
Call
guy.
3 people. Have 3 people in your number.
Do that. Yeah.
And it makes a difference in
It was
your life.
interesting. I was here trying to go on my social media because I know I posted something the other day that said something around the fact that if you even are considering, I'd much rather listen to you, than attend your funeral.
Than lose you.
How many times have you listened to me?
Well, a lot, but you know, it
It's a
goes with
commitment.
it is a commitment. But seriously, you know, I would much rather be there to listen to you than to be at your funeral.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, you guys, let's take this serious.
I don't
and
even
if you
have to listen. If you just want to sit, if you need a quiet place to sit with somebody
a
who
soft
understands.
spot to land on. But at the end of the day, I think that we have a great opportunity where we are today with the conversation being elevated to know that it is okay, you know, and it is okay to not be okay. That's the bigger thing. That's the bigger thing. It is okay to not be okay, but make sure that you at least dial in to the resources that are available, whether it's just phone a friend, text 741-741,
or reach
call
out to
Shannon.
Reach out to Shannon. See, great minds think alike.
Call Shannon. This is awesome.
Everybody's,
Wrap us up.
you know, everybody's got a Shannon. You may not think
Yeah.
of them like that, but
But
there's somebody.
you're right.
There's
You're
somebody
right.
who cares. There's somebody
Yep.
who would miss you if you were gone.
Yep.
There's somebody who needs you to be there tomorrow, and there's somebody who would much rather listen to you than go to your funeral.
Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Sharon Cagle Dawson.
Shannon.
See, I told you I was going to mess that up. didn't I?
We did good the whole time,
I
didn't
know.
we? Shannon
I did
Cagle
to get
Dawson.
you guys' response on that.
Yeah, right.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're live on the Andre The Beast Crayton Show. Miss Dawson, it's been a pleasure having you on the show.
Yes.
Please come back, share with us support, care, and loving, and how to keep that beast frame of mind moving forward.
Absolutely.
Ladies and gentlemen,
You're awesome. She's
this is
awesome.
Andre The Beast
Thank you.
Crayton.